this week, Haseeb?
I've just been keeping up to date with the latest news all around the world, some interesting stories, and just been keeping up to that, to be honest with you, and work, as always. Boring so-and-so.
Any interesting stories that you'd like to share with us?
No, nothing this week. Not much interesting. It's been a boring all week for myself.
So you've been following boring stories this week, then, have you?
Boring, yeah. There's a few stories, but I don't think I should be mentioning on the radio show. It's political around the world.
Oh, we want to avoid politics on this show for sure. Oh. Our guest tonight is Mohammed Faris, who is an international coach, author and speaker who helps executives, professionals and entrepreneurs live the best versions of themselves spiritually, physically and socially to achieve peak performance in their personal and professional lives. He's also the founder of productivemuslim.com, which is a very popular blog around the globe. In 2014, the Royal Islamic Strategic Studies Center added him to the world's 500 most influential Muslims list, and in 2016 the Dubai government awarded him the 2016 Islamic Economy Award in the media category for his valuable contribution to the development of the global Islamic economy. Assalamu alaikum, Mohammed Faris.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for being on the show tonight. How are you, sir?
Alhamdulillah, doing well. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair.
Good. So we'll move straight into the questions, because I know you've got a lot to share with us, and I know our listeners and viewers on Facebook will be keen to hear some enlightenment through you. I'll start off with your blog. Where did you get this idea to write a blog for Muslims?
Sure. So when I was in college, I actually did my master's and bachelor's degree in Bristol in the UK, and at that time I wanted to start a blog for it was that time of the, I don't know if people remember, probably gonna give away my age, but blogging was a big thing. Everyone just had a blog and everyone had a little blog, and blogs was a popular thing. And I love writing, and I thought blog was a great way to express ideas, thoughts, and so I started a few blogs, but they never really continued. But one day, it was November 2007, almost 10 years ago, that a idea popped in my head of writing about productive Muslim. These two words popped in my head. And the idea was, I love productivity because I'm a productivity geek, you can say that. I love about life hacking, how to become more efficient, how to live the best version of yourself. At the same time, I love my faith. And I thought, well, what if those two can come together? What if we can explore productivity from a faith perspective? And that's how the journey started.
Fantastic. And how did you grow that particular blog?
So initially just writing articles, being consistent in writing articles and throwing a different light on the science of productivity. I was overwhelmed that there was a lot of interest in the beginning, people who thought that there was this niche that has not been covered perhaps before, idea of productivity and Islam. And people started following on Facebook, the social media group, people started writing in the comments, started hiring a team to help me develop more content, and we just became this resource platform for Muslims looking for self-development and productivity tips and techniques.
Yeah, that's very good. And if somebody out there is thinking of starting a blog, what advice would you give to them?
First of all, start today. Don't wait. Take action. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for the perfect start. Just start. Get a domain name. Start a blog. Don't spend too much money on it in terms of designing and getting it perfect and make it look pretty. Just focus on the quality of your content. You don't even have to have your own domain name. You can start writing on other platforms which are free, and basically just write quality content. And the second advice I would give is to really think about what I call scratch your own itch. If something is bothering you, something that you think, I wish someone could write an article about this, well, guess what? You're the person who can write an article about that. And that would attract a lot of people to you, because people will say, oh, wow, I've always thought about this, but I couldn't find the answer, but now I know the answer. So make sure that you scratch your own itch, and you also scratch your customer's itch. What is it that your viewers, your customers, your listeners, your readers are really itching to know, but they haven't figured out yet? So this is where you come in and you write those quality, valuable content. And as you write more valuable content, it will grow over time. It's a long-term strategy. It's not a short-term quick strategy, but it's a very rewarding strategy, and it builds the body of knowledge that perhaps becomes one of those things that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught us, that it'll be something that's beneficial knowledge to leave behind after you pass away.
And a couple of common questions which I'm sure you get asked quite regularly is, how long should a typical blog be, and do you have a particular process when you're writing the blog in terms of the structure?
So that's an interesting question, because the first one, we did actually analytics on all our blog sites. We've published over 1,000 articles to date, and we ran analytics, which are the most popular articles. And surprisingly, the longer the article, the more popular it is. In fact, the articles that are more than 2,500 words were actually the most popular articles. And again, the reason behind that was that those articles were the most well thought through, was the most detailed, was the most practical. People thought, even though it was long, and we kind of commonly think, oh, people don't read articles these days, but people are looking for valuable content, right? The 500 word posts are great, but they kind of become almost like news by like a Twitter feeds, right? You cannot compete with Twitter and Facebook with 500 blog posts. But if you write a really good piece, and it could be 3,000, 5,000, it could be like, and you can write a book about it if you want to. That is, if it's a good piece, people will read, share, comment, and it becomes the most valuable piece of content. So I wouldn't say that, but I'll say mix and match as well. So put some short posts, put some long posts, put some video posts, put some audio posts, put some infographic posts, mix and match and make it happen. So that was the first question in terms of how long the post should be. In terms of the process is a continuous process. So there's a continuous process of, like I said, first of all, always be collecting ideas. Whether you're browsing the internet, whether you're watching TV, whether you're just walking and thinking, I wonder if this can be a problem that can be solved. I wonder if this is an issue what's the question trying to answer, basically. Start with the question, start thinking, start collecting research, and then write regularly. So if you set up post, for example, for me, it's Monday mornings when I sit and write for articles for the week. So write regularly. Let that become your habit. And yes, some stuff will look bad, some stuff will be embarrassed about, but hey, just ship. Real artists ship, keep on shipping, keep on publishing, keep on hitting send, and you will get better over time. Of course, if you're able to afford having editors and writers and contributors, also enhance the quality of your blog. But even just sitting down and writing, making it happen, is something that's very powerful as well.
And I noticed that you're also an author. What inspired you to become an author?
I guess 7 years into the blog, I've noticed that we've developed a body of knowledge. And at that time, I started doing workshops. And I realized that most of my workshops I got to a level where I felt comfortable that the body of knowledge I was teaching by the workshops is now ready to be put in the book. And that can become almost like a reference book for the workshops. So I spoke to a publisher, and I was encouraged by the publisher to write a book proposal. I wrote a book proposal. They accepted the proposal, and we moved ahead, and we decided to write the book. It took about 2-3 years to actually, from start to finish. The writing process was a bit convoluted, but eventually the book was published. It's like having a child sometimes. It's like very, very long, but very rewarding in the end. And it was a great experience, and just that you get into the habit of just the content that wasn't the hard part. It's more like putting in a book format. Again, having editors, having publishers, having people advise you on that was critical to the success of the book, alhamdulillah.
And if any of our listeners, which I'm sure they are interested in securing a publisher for a book idea that they have, what would your advice be to them?
So again, nowadays in the modern world, there's 3 ways you can publish a book. One is, of course, self-publish is the easiest route, but it has its own challenges. For example, getting your books in bookstores become a challenge, and also distribution become a challenge, and marketing, because you have to take care of the marketing yourself. So it works for some people, but it doesn't work for most people. I recommend working with a publisher for 2 reasons. Number one, there's a certain almost like what you call value of a publisher basically taking a bet on you. They say,
credibility.
Yeah, credibility. That's the word, credibility. They'll say, I'm taking a risk that I'm going to give you in advance. I'm going to trust that you're going to write the book. I'm going to trust your book is good enough to pay me back all the expenses of printing and publishing and distributing your book. So it becomes like its credibility is huge when you get a publisher. So the way you go about it, again, 2 ways. One is to go via literary agent, and basically there are literary agents around the country, many parts in the world, who basically they will read your book proposal, and if they say, I can sell this, they will go around different publishers and actually publish and actually sort of kind of try to get different publishers interested and bid for your book. But the agent, of course, takes a cut from any royalties you make. But it saves you the headache of looking for these publishers. If you are otherwise, if you have good network, you can ask people. Nowadays, a lot of the sort of Muslim publishers, Islamic publishers, even mainstream publishers, they have ways to directly submit proposals to them. So if you know somebody who can give a reference or can help you sort of give you a foot in the door, it does make a difference. It does help to have that. For me personally, subhanAllah, it was a chance meeting. I was traveling, and the publisher was also in the same city, the same conference I was in, and we just had lunch together, and that was the start of a very productive relationship, alhamdulillah.
And what's the big idea in your book?
The big idea is the idea that faith does boost productivity. We kind of we sometimes compartmentalize our life. There's faith and there's productivity, but we think, well, what if faith can be an integral part of productivity? How does that work? How does spirituality boost productivity? How does Islam boost productivity? And what is the link between faith and productivity? And that's kind of the big idea that we try to push throughout the book, alhamdulillah.
And what are the top 3 tips that somebody could learn if they weren't able to read your book, but you can share with them today?
Absolutely. So I think the first step, of course, is the idea of spiritual energy, that your spirituality, getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has a direct impact on your productivity. So when you pray more, when you read more Quran, when you do adhkar, when you send salutations upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all these things actually have impact on your day-to-day performance as a professional, as an executive, as a mom, as an entrepreneur, as a student. So the idea of spiritual energy is very, very important. The second big tip is to understand your body. Literally understand how your body eats, sleeps, and how your body and fitness impacts your body. Once you understand that, once you understand this machine, how this machine works, you can unlock its potential much more than if you just kind of go through life not knowing how this machine actually works. And the third tip is to basically not be selfish with your productivity. Sometimes we kind of think about ourselves and our family, but what about being productive for the community, being productive for society, being productive for humanity? How can you be productive outside your own circles? And that's also another third tip that I will share with everybody, inshallah.
Thank you very much. And picking up on your second tip about understanding your body, from the research that you've done, what are some of the key insights that you can share with our listeners today?
Absolutely. So the main key insights is, for example, when it comes to understanding our bodies, understand how to manage your sleep, nutrition, and your fitness. So in terms of managing your sleep, for example, the idea is how, people talk about how many hours of sleep at night they have at night, but really the better question is how many sleep cycles do I go through every night? How many quality sleep cycles do I go through every night? And you could look up this idea of sleep cycles, how sleep cycles work, and how do you calculate sleep cycles. There are even apps nowadays to help you do that. So the idea is how many quality sleep cycles can I have per night? This becomes very useful for the Muslim community when it comes to Ramadan, for example, especially in the UK when in Taraweeh becomes very late and Suhoor is very early, and you got work next day. How do you manage your sleep in terms of during summer Ramadan, basically? We have a whole chapter in the book about Ramadan productivity. The second major tip is about the power of napping, the importance of napping. And we kind of underestimated, even though there is tremendous productivity benefit with napping, and how to nap and when to nap and how to talk to your boss about napping. All those things are also a big part of that. And the last part is how to basically, once you wake up, how to design the ideal morning routine. And we take cues from the routine of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he spent his morning routines, and how can we design the perfect morning routine that balances your spiritual needs, your physical needs, and your social needs. So those three put together, when it comes to, this is in terms of sleep, can be very, very powerful. Nutrition is about basically being aware of food that increases productivity, being aware of food that decreases productivity. So I hate just to break it to everybody, but samosas and fried food and pakoras, they really ruin your productivity. That's why after fasting, when you have those, Taraweeh becomes very difficult. But having food that has low glycemic index, low GI food, you can just Google low GI food. You'll see a list of food that basically helps you last longer, helps you sustain energy throughout the day. And finally, fitness. The idea of fitness is to make sure that don't exercise for your body. We make this huge misunderstanding that we have to exercise to lose weight, to look good. Really, it's about your brain. Your brain benefits more from exercise than your body does. So don't make it like, oh man, I can't bother to exercise because I don't look good. I've tried exercising for for a whole month. I don't even lose a single pound. Well, take it, focus on your brain. That's why top CEOs, that's why top performers, they always exercise because they realize that's how it helps them stay at peak performance. That's what you need to do as well.
Well, Mohammed Faris, I hope you now realize that we are going to get a lot of complaints from our listeners about you because you just told them not to eat samosas, pakoras, and the like, and that just isn't possible.
I'm not a popular guy, I'll say that for sure.
Yeah, so you are never ever coming back onto our show, just so you know.
Absolutely.
And in terms of having a quality sleep cycle, I know there's quite a few apps, and you've got Fitbit, and perhaps the Apple Watch does something similar. Is there anything that people can do to improve that sleep cycle or the sleep cycles?
Absolutely. The biggest advice, again, your audience will still hate me now, is to basically cut down screen time before bed. That's a huge thing that impacts our sleep, the blue light. It's not just phones, iPads, laptops, TV, they emit blue light. And the problem with this is two parts. One is the actual blue light itself, which tells your brain it's not time to sleep yet. And that makes it harder for you to fall asleep and to get into that sleep cycles much quicker. And the second problem is, to be honest, it's the content, right? You watch the news, the stuff that come up, the graphic images sometimes we get exposed to, and that disturbs your sleep. I mean, any person with any heart will be disturbed by some of the stuff that come through social media and come through their TVs. So that's the two. So if you want to really improve your quality of sleep, I honestly recommend this. And you just try for one night, right? Again, if you don't want to believe, just try for one night where for 90 minutes before you bed, like let's say you plan to sleep at 10 o'clock, at 8:30, put your phone in a drawer, put your phone away. And if you say, oh, my phone is my alarm, buy a 5-pound alarm. You don't have to use your phone as your alarm. And just hide your phone. Or even better, what I do, I swap phones with my wife. So she takes my phone, I take her phone away. And that way we don't check each other's phones and we put it away. And it's such a relaxing time. And you'll see yourself falling asleep much better, relaxing much better, easing into sleep, and enjoying the nighttime ritual instead of being stressed at the last minute, checking your phone, checking emails, checking social media, and then just not being able to fall asleep properly.
Well, you've made it a bit easier now because our listeners are going to be deprived of samosas and pakoras, so they won't be able to sleep, but at least you've given them some kind of a formula to follow so they can try to sleep. And hopefully in the next 40 minutes we'll make a bit more progress, so by the end of the show you'll be extremely popular.
Inshallah, try my best.
I have no doubt. In terms of productivity, I know you've shared some tips with us, but time management is a big challenge for people, and it's an evergreen topic, and you'll know this better than I do. Are there some other things that you can share with us which will help people become more productive at work and generally in life?
So when it comes to time management, I mean, it's funny. You cannot control something that you cannot stop, own, spend, start, right? Like money you can control, money you can manage because you can save money, you can spend money, you can give money away. But time is not something you can manage because it's constantly moving. It will not stop for you. It will not wait for you. It will keep on moving. So when it comes to time management, I feel it's the wrong term for it. The term you should be using is actually how can I manage myself within the time that I have? How can I manage my energy levels? How can I manage my focus? How can I manage the resources around me within the time that I have? And if you understand time management from that perspective, it becomes a much more empowering concept instead of being, oh man, I'm using all these tools and techniques and they don't work. Well, start with yourself. For example, try to schedule tasks according to your energy levels. When do you feel most productive? When do you feel least productive? Don't put a hard task when you feel tired at night. And don't put an easy task when you're awake and energetic in the morning, for example. Or vice versa. Some people are evening people. So don't put a hard task for you in the morning because you're just not awake yet, and put them in the evening when you're much more alert. It depends on the personality of the person. The second thing is to schedule a time according to personality. So again, some people just love to sort of do things on the road. They try more like mobile workers. They enjoy doing stuff on the road. Some people like to have a particular setting to get work done. So really it's understanding yourself and understanding your relationship with time and how you get things done within time. If you can figure that out, it becomes a very powerful way to get important stuff done when you're able to and ready to, and not feel overwhelmed, stressed all the time, basically.
That's very sound advice. And if you just joined us, Assalamu alaikum, welcome and thank you for joining us. You're listening to Salaam Radio on 106.2 FM and Inspire FM on 105.1 FM. I'm your host, Shaz Nawaz, and I have in the studio with me my co-host, Mohammed Haseeb. You're listening to the Empower Hour show, and our commitment to you is to help to inspire, motivate and empower you to achieve bigger and better things in your career and in your life. And I'm absolutely delighted that Mohammed Faris is with us. He's an international speaker, coach, author, and he helps executives, professionals and entrepreneurs live the best versions of themselves spiritually, physically and socially to achieve peak performance in their personal and professional lives. And if you want to ask Faris a question, which I'm sure he'll be delighted to take, you can email us on studio@salamradio.co.uk. You can text and WhatsApp us on 077 45 278 978, or you can send us a message through Facebook. Brother Faris, I will now pass you over to my co-host, Mohammed Haseeb.
Absolutely.
Thank you again, Brother Faris, for joining us on for today's show.
Thank you.
I watched some videos of yours online, and one thing that stands out for me, you're passionate about productivity. What does productivity mean to you, and why are you so passionate about that?
Okay, so the idea, productivity, basically the way we define it, a productive Muslim, is that it's how you manage your energy times how you manage your focus times how you manage your time. So if you think of it like an equation, right? There's energy, focus, and time. And all these three together combined will towards a beneficial goal. You direct towards a beneficial goal. And that's the definition I use. So if you understand your energy, if you understand your focus, and if you understand how to manage your time and how they go up and down, you'll understand how to track and how to improve and how to unlock your productivity. The reason I'm passionate about it is, honestly, I feel that being productive is almost an obligation on a Muslim, right? The idea of we're here to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we do not use our energy, our focus, and our time towards our ultimate goal of worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then where are we spending those energy, focus, and time? We live in a very distracted world. We live in a world that takes a lot of toll on our energy, and a world that we feel overwhelmed and busy. If we can't take ownership, take control of our energy, focus, and time towards a beneficial goal, towards worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then I fear sometimes that we end up living a life of regret, not just in this life, but the hereafter. So I feel productivity is the engine. Productivity is a means. It's not the end. I don't expect people to become just obsessed by productivity for the sake of productivity, but it's the means towards pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and living the best version of yourself, spiritually, physically, socially.
That's fantastic. And thank you for that. Also, how does a person achieve personal discipline? Because to be productive, you've got to be disciplined. You've got to get your tasks done at a set time. So, how does a person achieve that?
So discipline really requires, number one, a higher purpose. You need to know why you're doing what you're doing, right? If I tell you to exercise, you're like, yeah, sure, I'll exercise. But if I tell you, hey, listen, if you don't exercise, in a few years' time, you might end up having this, for example, this heart disease. Even then, it might not be too tempting for you. It must be something so important to you that you're like, you know what, I should get exercise. Maybe I want to see my grandchildren. You know what, I want to play with my kids when they grow up. You know what, I don't want to end up, I want to make sure I want to connect my whatever activity I want to do, what I want to be disciplined on, with a higher purpose, with a higher meaning. And of course, the best thing to connect to is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you're doing something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why prayer develops that discipline. And the only way to be disciplined on prayer is to understand why you're praying and connect it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the first one. The second thing is with discipline is to practice. Right? In the army, they have, you go through drills. And the reason we go through drills because it doesn't matter when you feel like it, when you don't feel like, you're going to get up in the morning and do a 5-mile jog.
Brother Faris, I shall ask you to politely hold there, and we're going to go towards a break. And after the break, you can kindly answer the question for us.
Absolutely.
And it's a 5-minute break. And listeners, please do stay with us, and please do send us some of your questions so Brother Faris can answer them. See you in a short while. Assalamu alaikum.
Stay tuned to Salaam Radio after this short ad break. I've just come out of Penny Appeal's Orphans Accommodation. Brothers and sisters, they've got a kitchen where they're getting fresh food cooked and served to them. They've got foster mothers looking after them. These are how orphans should be looked after. Sponsor an orphan for pennies a day. Call 03000 11 11 11 or visit the website pennyappeal.org. Remember, small change, big difference.
Iqra Academy is the only Muslim girls' school in Cambridgeshire where your daughter will develop her knowledge of Islam and the national curriculum in a safe environment. Ofsted has judged the teaching and learning, leadership and management, pupil behaviour and personal development as good in June 2017. Iqra Academy's qualified staff teach in small classes, and the school is producing sports teams who have a track record of succeeding at national level. With reduced fees and a good rating 3 times from Ofsted, why not consider Iqra Academy for your daughter? Enroll now to avoid disappointment. Please contact 01733 331 433 or email admin@iqraacademy.org.uk.
Do you have lots of clutter at home or in the office that needs to be kept but nowhere to keep it? Ivet Self-Storage offers a secure, affordable, clean and dry home for your belongings. We have security systems in place which are monitored 24 hours a day, ensuring that your items are safe. With a simple monthly payment, Ivet Self-Storage provides secure and tailored facilities to meet your specific requirements, whether short or long term. We offer the best prices and longest opening hours in Peterborough. For more information, please call on 01733 306 456 or visit us at Ivet Way, Westwood.
Gems and jewels. Wise sayings, interesting events, and moral lessons from Islamic history. A mother who spent wisely on her son.
A man came back to his home in Al-Medina after many years of journey. He asked his wife about his son and an amount of 30,000 dinars which he had entrusted her before starting his journey. His wife said to him, "First go and pray in the mosque of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then I will tell you about them." He went to the Prophet's mosque and saw a gathering of many eminent attendees. And as soon as the crowd gave him space, he saw Rabi'ah, his son, there. Rabi'ah had become a famous scholar and was heading a study circle at the mosque, which included the likes of Malik, Hassan, Zayd, Ibn Ali al-Lahbi, al-Musamma'i, and other figures of repute and intellect from Al-Medina. The father confirmed the scholar's identity with a man from the gathering and then left the crowd to return to his home. He said to his wife, "Indeed, Allah has elevated your son to an unparalleled level." His wife responded, "What is more beloved to you, 30,000 dinars or the status that your son has achieved?" He replied, "Certainly the ranking that my son has achieved." His wife continued to explain, "I have spent all of that wealth upon him." The father replied in a satisfied tone, "Indeed, you have
This
not
is Salaam Radio. This is Salaam Radio, Peterborough's Muslim Community Radio.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome, and thank you for joining us. After the break, you're listening to Salaam Radio on 106.2 FM and Inspire FM on 105.1 FM. I'm your host, Shaz Nawaz, and I have in the studio with me my co-host, Shaz Haseeb. You're listening to the Empower Hour show, and our objective is to inspire, motivate, and empower you. And we do that by inviting leading authorities from around the world who share some of their insights, experiences, knowledge, and expertise. And as always, we would love for you to get involved, to ask questions, and you can do that by emailing us on studio@salamradio.co.uk. You can text and WhatsApp us on 077 45 278 978, or you can send us a message through Facebook. I'm delighted to have Mohammed Faris with us, who is an international coach, author, speaker, and he helps executives, professionals and entrepreneurs live the best versions of themselves spiritually, physically and socially to achieve peak performance in their personal and professional lives. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back, Brother Faris.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh.
Thank you for staying with us after the break. I thought after the samosas and pakoras you may have scarpered, but you're tougher than I thought you were.
Alhamdulillah, try my best, inshallah.
And I promise I'm going to drop that joke and I'm never going to remind you about samosas and pakoras again.
Trust me, I can still get hate mails.
In that case, I'm going to share your email address and your home address with all of our listeners, and you'll have more of that, and you'll have a few fridge magnets too.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So just before the break, you were kindly sharing some insights addressing Haseeb's question.
Absolutely. So I was talking about how to develop discipline, and it's a three-part process. The first one is to attach what you're trying to be disciplined on with a higher purpose, a higher meaning. So make sure that it's not, sometimes you do something because you have to, versus you do something because you know why it's important. Whether that's higher meaning could be connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or that's higher meaning is because it's an internal expectation you want to achieve, or even just higher meaning means that you want to make sure you make your parents, your siblings, those around you happy and pleased about you. The second thing is to practice, that on days when you don't feel like doing it, sometimes, let's say taking exercise as an example, some days just don't feel like exercise, you just don't feel like going to the gym. Well, I use the better than nothing rule. I'll do 2 push-ups. I'm like, hey, I've done my exercise for the day. I'll just use that to push myself to do something and not just not do something. Sometimes just taking those first 2 steps, next thing you know, you go for a slow jog, you go for a small walk, next thing you know, you've done like 10 miles of walking just by taking those first few steps. So practice, and use those baby steps to kind of overcome those initial inertias when you feel like you don't feel like doing something. And last but not least is to have accountability. So whether that's, sometimes accountability could be as simple as an app, right? There's an app that reminds you to get out there and do stuff. Sometimes accountability can be somebody you know, somebody you trust, somebody you love, somebody you respect, who really pushes you and says, hey, I think you need to stick to what you said you're going to do. And there's those 3 factors, high on purpose, practice, and baby steps, as well as the high accountability, will help you develop discipline, inshallah.
Thank you very much. We have our first question, and as always, we have a brother called Fiaz, Brother Faris, who always comes in and consistently asks the first question.
MashaAllah.
And his question is, what are your thoughts on Imam Ghazali's concept of time, where he splits time during the day according to the Sunnah and worldly affairs?
First answer is, who am I to even challenge that? So Imam Ghazali is mashallah, his works on periods of worship in Ihya Ulumuddin is powerful. Mm-hmm. How to organize your day around the most important thing. And for him, what I love about his works, and there's actually a great online animation on YouTube that talks about this, is how does Imam Ghazali talk about the prayer? And he basically arrange your time around prayer times, and then arrange your time according to the most important things, and to maximize, to live the best version of yourself, spiritually, physically, socially. He succinctly, in much more eloquent ways, described the ideal Muslim sort of a schedule, 24-hour schedule. And I highly recommend anyone who's interested in this field to look up Imam Ghazali's work on periods of worship. It's called Periods of Worship. And basically describe that to 24-hour cycle of night and day, and connecting spirituality to our modern day productivity as well.
Thank you very much. Another question from a listener is, how do you do it? How can you have a truly beneficial time out and spiritual experience in the workplace?
So that's a good question. I think it first starts off by your intentions and how you approach work. If you approach work as just a job or just something I need to go to so I can earn and just go home, and it becomes this almost like other world. Sometimes we have to put like 2 hats, right? When we are at work, and then once we leave work, we can take off our work hat and put on the Muslim hat on. If you live in those 2 worlds, that becomes harder for you to connect those 2 together. But if you're able to approach work by saying that it's something that you're doing, number one, to earn halal income and to feed your family and to give charity from that. But the work itself, the work you're producing something, and you're giving back something that is of value to other human beings. You are helping. You have this service mentality. You're easing someone's hardship. You are improving someone's life. You could be an accountant or an auditor or someone in a role that might seem like the most unspiritual role in the world, but
thank you for that, Faris. Both Haseeb and I are accountants, but so you were just about to making progress after samosa and pakoras. But
here's a tip for you: approach work that if you do your work meaningfully, if you do your work with trustworthiness, if you're accurate you're only saving millions of work. The work that you do, the work that the employees of the company itself, and which you also are providing halal income for their families. And there's the ripple effect just for the work you're doing. It might for in your eyes, you might say, I'm just crunching numbers, but it can be much more meaning than that. There's a great works about nowadays called job crafting, and the idea of it's how you see your work, right? It could be anything from a hospital, like there's a great story about a hospital janitor who was asked, who are you? Like, what's your role? And they said, I'm a healer. They're like, what do you mean you're a healer? You just, clean hospital rooms. So, well, if I don't clean the hospital rooms, the patients will get sick because all the germs will go attack the patients. So they saw themselves as a healer. And it's about giving that meaning and purpose behind the work you do. So that's the first step to adding spirituality to the work you do. The second thing I recommend is, and this might seem a bit hard for some people, it might be easy for other people, is what I say, whenever you submit work as if you're saying you're submitting your best, as if you're submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you almost like this is a form of worship. Like, I'm doing this work, this is the best version of myself. This is the work that's showing with ihsan, with itqan, and you keep on reminding yourself of the ihsan, itqan as you're doing this work. It's not about the boss. It's not about making yourself. It's not about the performance review. It's not about the promotion. You're doing the best work. And the funny thing is, if you consistently do the best work, you will be the one who always gets picked up for promotion because people have seen your sincerity, even others are not watching. And the third thing is to have this constant consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the workday. This is very, very hard. There's actually spiritual practices around us where simply just keeping, for example, saying La ilaha illallah, alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. You know how it is nowadays, productivity gurus will say, every hour you should stand up and, move away from your chair a little bit. Well, why not stand up and remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Just add a little bit extra and have that, remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you start your day, during the work itself, in the middle. And this is why sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the one who remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the marketplace has huge amounts of reward, because in the marketplace everyone is so overwhelmed and busy and stressed and in the mode of buying and selling and getting things done, and you, out of all that stress, you kind of like able to shift your focus and connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is powerful. So get in the habit, just put a little beep on your phone, put a little beep on your watch, put a little reminder to maybe once a day or twice during the workday to boom, like remind yourself to worship Allah subhanahu. Of course, prayer times are great to do that, but even throughout as you interact with other people and move things forward. So I hope this, have meaning and purpose. Submit your best work as if you're submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and keep that consciousness in you, and that way you bring spirituality into the workplace.
Just so you know, Haseeb and I had spent many, many months helping our listeners and viewers build a beautiful dream about accountancy and how noble a profession it is, and then you've come now and you've turned that dream into their worst nightmare. So in Cambridgeshire and in Bedfordshire here in the UK, I think none of our listeners will ever want to become accountants again. And if we have a shortage, then again we're going to be coming to look for you, my brother.
Inshallah. Alhamdulillah.
Another question we have from one of our listeners is, reviewing every aspect of your life is also very important. The job you do and the people that you hang out with is also important. What are your views on this?
Absolutely. I mean, the companions, the Prophet ﷺ taught us that the Jalisul Salih and the good companion versus the bad companion, what impact they have on you, on your personality, on how you react to things. So, if you have productive friends, if you have friends who able to achieve things, get things done, who are not lazy, who are motivated, you will catch that bug. You'll be motivated. You'll be productive. You'll be someone who overcomes laziness. If you have friends who put you down every time when I go do something, like they make fun of you, say, "Oh man, what are you doing? Just sit back, relax." enjoy the weekend. Why are you going out there volunteering today? It's too hot, it's too cold, and it consistently puts you down. That becomes hard. That becomes, really difficult for you to move that forward. And if you're in that situation, especially with family, sometimes a lot of times I get questions about family, where family puts you down. You want to become productive. You want to go out, be active. You want to be someone who's living the best version of themselves. But then you have sometimes, unfortunately, parents, siblings, children, spouses who just put you down and they make fun of you, or they say, oh, who are you trying to be and who are you trying to change? And my advice is to stay put and make those small changes. When what they're reacting to is the fear of change. They fear that you're going to become someone better than themselves, and they feel almost insecure by your change. So don't give up. Be the role model. Show the positive force that when you are productive, how that's helping not only yourself but also helping them as well. And soon enough they will follow, and soon enough they will follow your lead, and you become an example for them, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Now I can tell that you've spent quite a bit of time, money and resource in personal development. What are some of the books or some of the mentors who you've studied who've really helped you improve and accelerate your learning?
Well, in terms of books, I think from the, and of course there's the classical works, Islamic classical works, of course, there's always a resource that everyone should return to. Whether, of course, starting the Quran or from Riyadh al-Salihin, hadith books, from the Seerah, from all the, and just sometimes looking at it from the perspective of productivity, personal development. Sometimes we read these books, but we just don't make those connections, and it's up to us to stop. Sometimes unfortunately, as a community, sometimes we have intellectual laziness where we don't kind of venture and say, well, what is this? What about that? And try making those connections. And that's the fun part. That's the enjoyable part of learning and developing knowledge, is having that intellectual and sort of, basically pushing yourself and asking out questions, and having teachers who can, sort of help you, direct you in the right way as well when you're asking those questions. So that's into the Islamic work. But also there's great books that's now starting to come out in the Muslim world as well. For example, this book called Contemplation by Professor Malik Badri. Is a great book about Islamic psycho-spiritual work and the idea of, this whole movement now, especially in the US here, about meditation and mindfulness and all that stuff. Yeah. Well, and so the Islamic response to that, what is the Islamic narrative on that and take on that? And he talks about tafakkur, about contemplation, and how it is far outweighs the sort of the minimal and the limited scope of meditation, for example. So that's a very powerful work that I recommend people to do. There are some books, of course, in Arabic that that also have come up recently that are very powerful. Other mainstream books, again, it's in different areas. For example, exercise in the brain, I talk about the book Spark, the new science, exercise in the brain. When it comes to books on productivity, there's Eat, Move, Sleep by Tom Rath. There's another great, powerful book about how you eat, how you move, how you sleep. I follow the work of Dr. Ron Friedman, who writes about the best place to work. He has a great book on peak performance. He's got a great conference on that, on peak performance and how to achieve peak performance in life. So again, there's a wealth of information, and it's up to us now is to mine that information, apply it, make it work, and also connect it to our faith. Because if we believe that Islam is the last divine message to mankind, then we have to believe that it has all the messages and all the instructions we need to live the best version of ourselves. And that's what we need. But we need to unlock and decode and to see how that applies to modern day lives, basically.
Another question from one of our listeners is that are we as Muslims losing the spiritual aspects of Islam? I feel that spirituality in Islam is not taken seriously. We tend to concentrate more on the physical side, i.e. Salah and Ramadan. What are your thoughts about this?
So again, I talk from a productivity, personal development perspective. I'm not a scholar or a sheikh from that angle, so I don't talk about, I look at, for example, if I look at spirituality, well, what's the link between spirituality and productivity? What's the link between spirituality and personal development? But I guess what the listener is saying is the idea of the soul of Islam itself, the inner works of Islam, the soul of Islam itself seems to be nowadays dried out, and we kind of focus on these physical manifestations of worship instead of the emotional, the meaningful, the soul, spiritual side of it. And that's something that's work of the community to kind of redevelop, rekindle their lives. And from the work that I do, I focus more on, well, how does that spirituality, just having that spiritual, if you have a really beautiful Salah experience, let's say you had an amazing Salah experience, you're fully focused, you enjoyed it, Well, not only is that amazing on a spiritual level, well, that has a knock-on effect on your energy levels, on your focus level, on the amount of barakah that comes out of that salah. So it's not just the spiritual experience itself, but there's that knock-on effect on your personal life as well. And that is what we hope people to achieve, inshallah.
If you just joined us, Assalamu alaikum, welcome, and thank you for joining us on Salaam Radio on 106.2 FM and Inspire FM on 105.1 FM. You're listening to the Empower Hour show, and our objective is to inspire, motivate and empower you, and we do that by inviting leading authorities around the globe to share their knowledge, experience and expertise. I am your host, Shaz Nawaz, and I have with me in the studio my co-host, Mohammed Haseeb. I'm delighted to have Mohammed Faris with us, who is an international coach, author, speaker, and he helps executives, professionals and entrepreneurs live the best versions of themselves spiritually, physically and socially in order to achieve peak performance in their personal and professional lives. Brother Faris, I will now pass you over to my co-host Haseeb.
Absolutely.
Brother Faris, as you mentioned, you touched upon, Shaz at the starting, you touched upon the awards that you received. I just want to say, what is your key to success? What are the main aspects which you think have attributed to your success?
Oh boy, I guess
a few key points.
All I can answer is, I guess, is what Shu'aib alayhi salam said in the Quran, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ, that any success is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those awards, those nominations, they're great, but I really hope that, for me personally, the success that I'd like to see is that I leave beneficial knowledge that makes an impact in the community, that does change the ummah. My dream is to see a productive ummah, to see the civilization of the Muslim world to revive itself, instead of to move away from laziness and unproductivity, and to move away from just accepting the status quo and just being this kind of, unfortunately, the Muslim world and a large part of the Muslim world, if you look at statistics, they are the least productive nations in the world. Sometimes the communities themselves within non-Muslim countries as well, they are not as productive. And my hope, my goal, my dream is to unlock that potential and say, no, there's faith inspires productivity, and we need to move away from this sense of lack of productivity. And if that really does happen, if I'm able to contribute a little way into that, then inshallah ta'ala, that is something that I pray Allah ta'ala accepts and becomes part of a reason for me, inshallah ta'ala, to gain his mercy and blessings, inshallah. Inshallah.
Something you just touched upon, that if you could shed some more light on there. Why are Muslim countries the most less productive? What are some reasons do you think they are?
So I cover some of these points in my book in terms of, not in terms of course, there's lots of factors, cultural factors, political factors, regional factors, but there are certain also what I call psyches. Certain things have entered the Muslim psyche that have made being productive quite a difficult thing. For example, I mentioned just three of these. Number one, things like, you hear this a lot, right? Dunya is bad, right? This world is bad. Don't neglect this world, focus on the hereafter. That message, even though it's well-intentioned, and I understand where some of our imams, come from with that idea, but that message, for example, if not given a balanced view, the idea that yes, you can still be productive in this world for the sake of hereafter, you can still contribute to this world for the sake of hereafter. If that balanced view is not given, then I've had young people decide to leave engineering degrees, leave computer science degrees, leave productive degrees, and say, I just want to sit and learn scholarship, which is great, which is very, very important. But sometimes not everyone can be a scholar. We need the engineers, we need the people who are thinkers, we need the creatives, we need the innovators, we need the artists that brought the Islamic civilization to where it was. So we need those people. And if we tell them the dunya is bad, dunya is bad, dunya is bad, that crushes any sort of sense of motivation on that from that front. The second psyche that hits people is the idea of that righteousness, that if I'm a righteous person, if you think about it, if you think of a righteous person, what comes to mind? Someone who's praying, someone who's fasting, someone who's really sort of religious in terms of their worship. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that إِنَّ الْأَرْضَ يَرِثُهَا عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ, that this earth will be inherited by our righteous servants. Now, think about it. If someone who's simply focused on the acts of worship, without contributing anything beneficial towards society, how will they be ready to be inheritors of the earth? So the idea of righteousness only being acts of worship. Righteousness is acts of worship plus contributing positive to a society. And that's why all the prophets, when they came, they didn't just come with believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they also came to fix social ills, to be positive force in the community. And the last one, this is probably the most deadliest psyche that's hitting the Muslim world and Muslim populations in general, is the idea of, you know, it's all written, therefore I should not even bother. And you see this, and again, I talked to a lot of people, say, well, what's the point? What's the point of studying? What's the point of working hard? Everything is written. And it's this misunderstanding of the idea of qadr and qada and qadr and how it impacts our lives, that we forgot that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us free will. That's for the thinking, the planning. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given such natural laws we should follow. And there's also the power of dua, where the Prophet ﷺ said that, you know, لا يرد القدر إلا dua, that even destiny, nothing repeals destiny except dua. So even if something that's about to happen to you, dua is one of your biggest weapons. Not even raising your hands is your best self-defense mechanism. So these sort of what are called these psyches have entered into the populations on a grand scale, and then faith is being blamed for Muslims being productive. And this is why the mission we do, you know, we hope that it helps to change that perception. You know, faith is Islam's a very empowering, very positive, very productive faith. We've unfortunately, you know, we've kind of took some parts out of context and turned it into this thing where it's all about focusing on your acts of worship and focusing on the hereafter, and just not, and being unfortunately almost like a burden on society instead of being a positive, contributing, powerful force in society.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for that, Brother Faris. Brother Faris, got another question from a listener. Yeah. Does a workshop called the Barakah effect on Barakah in the workplace?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We focus on the idea of Barakah. And again, we've heard of Barakah before, but have you ever thought about where do I get Barakah? What is Barakah? How do I measure Barakah? How do I increase Barakah? How does Barakah decrease? What are the sources of Barakah? We've done research and found 21 sources of Barakah, and where to get them. So it's all about applying and getting those Barakah in the workplace as well as at home with your family as well.
Where do you get them then? The Barakah.
So again, Barakah, it's one of those amazing things. Barakah, the definition of Barakah is it's the attachment of divine goodness to a thing. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put this Barakah in this laptop right now, it lasts longer. If Allah puts Barakah in your health, you know, you do more with your health. If Allah puts Barakah in your money, you could do more with your money. It's about doing more with less. And how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, if He puts barakah in something, that the benefit of it is, and the impact of it is much more stronger compared when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away barakah, right? You can see someone who has lots of wealth or lots of health or lots of time, and there's no barakah in any of that. And it's like they don't seem to be able to even grab where it is. And that's again, the book by Professor Malik Badri talks about barakah in a very powerful way. It says that barakah in time is like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, you talk about quantum physics where He splits the second for you, and in that 1 second you can get so much done. He almost expands that 1 second for you, and He contracts. So sometimes He expands some people their time and He contracts some of their time. That's why Allah's name Al-Qabid Al-Basit comes in, the one who contracts and the one who expands. It's a fascinating topic about barakah and how it actually works, even on a quantum physics level. So where do you find it? You find it by the general answer is being closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, having that piety, having halal, you know, earning halal incomes, giving in charity, ties of kinship, waking up early. And each of these we have a hadith and verses of the Quran that talk about the source of barakah and where to find barakah according to the Quran and Sunnah, inshallah.
Finally, one last question before I pass it back to Shaz. Do you have any other messages for our listeners that you would like to share?
I guess all the advice that I pass on is an advice I received from a scholar, Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya, who's a well-renowned scholar. I went to saw him in his house about 10 years ago, and I was about to stop correct a Muslim, and I asked him for advice, and he said, have good intentions and work hard. Have good intentions, work hard. That's the formula for success. And I honestly took that to heart, and I hope that our listeners and everyone and all of us here just focus on this too. Have good intentions and work hard, and that will, inshallah, be a guarantee for you for success in this life and in the next, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much, brother. That's been phenomenal. You've shared so many insights with us, from blogging, writing a book, getting a proposal ready, spirituality, understanding the body, how not to be selfish with productivity, sleep cycles. You've also put people off from eating samosas and pakoras, and you've ensured that nobody will ever want to become an accountant again.
Alhamdulillah.
So thank you very much for joining us, brother. It's been a pleasure.
No
and listeners and viewers, thank you for joining us. And inshallah, we will speak to you next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.